Madam here and then up there.
There seems to be a lot of information going around on the internet about childhood vaccinations triggering autism. And I think because there are so many parents with autism, in their zeal to find an answer to what causes autism and then therefore finding a cure, perhaps they're just looking at something being causal that may not be causal but coincidental.
Yeah. So you ask for a comment on so the story is that a lot of people think or try to make a link between childhood vaccination and autism, and could you comment on that, I guess?
Yes, the scientist who originally published that finding has recently recanted and said that he made it all up, I'm sorry to say. Yes, and you can check that on the internet if you will. I forget his name, Andrew something or other. And you know, be that as it may, there has been no corroboratory evidence for those initial findings. Now, that does not say that there have not been individuals, children who were sort of close to developing regressive autism, and they get this big immune challenge, and that may have been a precipitating factor. Now, whether you say that that is the cause of autism, that's kind of a semantic point. The thing about autism is that it has very, very many causes. And that is something which does follow from these ideas. There is going to be no single cause. We know that there is no single cause. There are certain genetic changes that have a very high likelihood of producing autism, but there are probably well over 100 different sorts of causes of autism. So as humans, we always want to know why. Okay? We always want to know the cause, and we would like the cause to be simple. And that is not going to happen with these sorts of disorders. There are too many different causes. Now, that it should not be a reason for discouragement, because you can have a whole series of different genetic causes that basically get funneled through development such that the changes in the developmental processes can actually be relatively few. And to the extent that that's the case, there is no reason whatsoever why 20 or 30 years from now we have a good enough understanding of the genetic causes, genetic correlates of autism, that we can do a genetic test when a child is born or even before they're born and give them therapeutics when they're young to prevent autism from developing. I think we're going to see that. Maybe it'll be longer than 20 or 30 years. It's theoretically absolutely possible.
Lady in the back, yeah? Mm-hmm.
My question has to do with the degree to which these problems are inherited. For example, if you have a woman who has symptoms on the schizophrenic side, overstimulation, and so forth, what are the chances that her offspring will also have those symptoms? Or can they skip a generation, or, you know, is it for certain that they will also be affected?
So the question is very specifically about the heritability, so the probability that children of people who are schizophrenic or are on that side of the spectrum will have, what's the probability that their children will also have that disease?
If individuals are related as either mother to offspring or as siblings, then if one of those individuals has schizophrenia, the numbers come out about 10% probability that their child or their brother or sister also has that as a sort of discretely diagnosed condition. Okay. So, it's not that high, and there's nothing, and one should not think that there is anything determined about that. Okay, that is just the numbers that we have from previous studies. With early detection, pharmacological treatment, behavioral therapy, it could go down to 1 or 2%. There is certainly no reason why it couldn't. But the number that you see is about 10%. I should also mention that when you look, and I didn't go into this in detail, when you look at schizophrenia and bipolar, what you also find in the families of individuals with schizophrenia and bipolar is extremely talented individuals as well. And Shakespeare has talked about the associations between insanity and genius, and I think that there is plenty of evidence for those associations, and those associations actually fit very well with these ideas that I've presented today. Okay, so if you have individuals that they're in a family with a high incidence of schizophrenia and bipolar, you commonly have individuals in that family who are very highly talented. For example, there's good associations between certain forms of bipolar disorder and high social achievement, which have been replicated in a number of studies. I don't know why people don't talk about them, but they are really there.
Yes, madam? Yes, I wanted to ask you, actually you've almost answered my question, but a violinist is coming to Vancouver in April. His name is Joshua Bell. He started playing the violin when he was 4 years old. Now, his repertoire is absolutely fantastic, and does he then represent abuse? Is he one of those people then who leans more towards schizophrenia, as you were suggesting, his brain, because what he memorizes when he's playing this violin? Most people can't do that. And is it a genetic thing that causes this rare talent that he had?
Yeah, so there's a question about someone named Joshua Bell who had started having a repertoire on the violin since he's a virtuoso violinist. Does he have any other symptoms? You're saying this question because he's also considered to be autistic, or are you just asking for a prediction of his personality?
Would he then be? We were talking about artistic people. He'd be more inclined to be schizophrenic rather than.
Okay, so as an artist, would he be more likely to be on the schizophrenic end of this continuum?
He isn't schizophrenic.
No. We might not know, but this. You're saying, would you like to make a prediction about where he lies on this continuum, based on his artistic ability?
Yeah.
I will happily talk around that question. There's something called absolute pitch, which is a musical ability. Some people call it perfect pitch. It is found highly disproportionately in people with either autism or people who are high on autism scales. And the sort of ability that you're talking about is commonly referred to as a savant ability. And I showed you pictures of Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man. He was playing an autistic savant who had the ability to calendar calculate and multiply large numbers. The types of abilities that autistic savants tend to be sort of non-social, sort of mechanistic, sometimes incredibly intensive, computationally intensive abilities. Those I think are very different from the sort of what I would call psychotic affective savant abilities, which you would find in the Hemingway or the Sylvia Plath. Albert Einstein had a schizophrenic son, for example. So I think that you find certain types of abilities at both ends. On the autistic end, they're more sort of mechanistic types of abilities, but on the other end, they tend to be more sort of autistic and abstract thought sort of abilities. But that's a broad generalization.